Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD, and a sort of event-packed weekend for me on a personal level. My son, Jake, got married. I'll put a quick picture up on the screen. There he is in the middle there. It was very emotional. He's our first son, and my other son is all the way to the left. His name is Casey. He's the older guy. But Jake got married first, so we had a wonderful time, but it's pretty emotional. And I was going to stay off the air for a while, but I drew me back in today once I returned home. Thank you guys for all your support. I really appreciate all of you. I just want to mention that this case we're covering today, Madeline Soto, it's so horrific. You know, these missing children cases are just, you can't understand them. It's so horrible, hard to understand, hard to fathom how someone can hurt a child like this. But to me, it's so heroic, law enforcement, that they did such an unbelievable job here. And they're not finished. They're still, of course, working on this case. And having a suspect under arrest so quickly, and no doubt this Stephan Sterns, who was the mother's boyfriend, the mother Jennifer Soto, he is undoubtedly going to be arrested for the murder. However, at this point, they have great charges through their investigation that they were able to put together in order to hold him. And that's what those charges are right now. They know he's going to be charged with the murder, but right now they're going to keep him in jail until they slap these new charges on him. And if anyone's seen the arrest warrant affidavit, it's just horrific what was happening to this little girl, Madeline Soto. And we'll get into that. But I just also, you know, this came on the heels of the most Audrey Cunningham, just a week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago, 11-year-old girl that was kidnapped by a family friend. So all of these cases, we want to realize, the true crime aficionados, the folks that are always watching this, there is a methodology to what law enforcement does. And I'm going to get into what they do, the checklist they do on a missing person, because that's so important, to go over every possible thing, every lead, and go by a checklist of what you're supposed to do. And then that's going to lead to the answer. That's going to lead to who committed this horrific crime. So folks, hold on to your seats. Get ready to enter true crime from a police perspective. And you're going to get true crime off the cuff. Welcome to the Police Off the Cuff Zone. There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped in 10th and Ranch Michael Byler.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
You know, on the screen is a picture of the victim of this crime, 13-year-old Madeline Soto. And one of the things we're finding out through this investigation is the horror she was living through in regards to her mother's boyfriend. And there's a picture of her mother on the screen with her. I don't know at this point if the mother has any culpability in this case, if the mother was at all involved in this case. At the very least, she has very poor instincts in boyfriends, you know, and we will find out as the investigation proceeds whether or not she has anything to do with this. And of course, on the screen there is Madeline Soto, and suspect, of course, Stephan Sterns, who is now in jail but not yet charged with this horrific crime. She was recently found on Friday, of course, in a wooded area. And so the body of 13-year-old Madeline Soto has been found in a wooded area near where she went missing. Police announced on Friday at around 6:25 p.m. that her body was found by Osceola County deputies in a wooded area along Hickory Tree Road at approximately 4:30 p.m. local time. Her heartbroken family was notified of the discovery, which came after Orange County Sheriff John Mina announced earlier in the day that the search had turned into a recovery mission. So they had some investigative information. Soto went missing on Monday, February 26th, after her mother's boyfriend reportedly dropped her off at Peace United Methodist Church on Town Loop Boulevard, just a few blocks away from Hunters Creek Middle School, which she attended. She was reported missing that afternoon when her mother, Jen Soto, went to pick her up and discovered that she had never attended class that day. The teen had just turned 13 on February 22nd, having celebrated the milestone date on Sunday. Stephan Sterns, 37 years old, you see a picture of him up on the screen. Jen's boyfriend was arrested on unrelated charges of assault and the possession of child abuse material on his phone, and was immediately deemed the prime suspect in the case, as he was the last person to have seen Soto alive after dropping her off. CCTV footage from the church showed her hanging out in the parking lot at around 8:30 a.m. that morning before she disappeared and was not seen or heard from again till her body was discovered. The investigation. Let's talk about the investigation in these cases. One of the first things you do, of course, as the police, is to search the home. To search the home of the missing persons. There's been cases where the police didn't do that, and lo and behold, the child was in the home. So that's the first. And what we know right now also is this entire home is a crime scene. Now we know that it is a crime scene. Earlier on, we didn't suspect, well, as you guys know, is again, true crime, real crime aficionados, you always look at the people closest first, the family members first. But in a missing person case, you always search the home. They've probably uncovered some bad things in that home, because as you do the investigative checklist, one of them, of course, was bringing this guy, Stephan Sterns, who's the first or the last person to see Madeline alive, and he's the one that dropped her off. So we want to speak to him. We want to bring him in. We want to see what his demeanor is. We want to speak to him. And lo and behold, the police found something in his phone that was so horrific that immediately connected him to this murder and to other crimes. And I'm not going to say you guys have seen, or you can see, the arrest warrant. Just let it be known that this poor girl was going through hell. And as I said earlier, thank God that the police are so good at their job, and they're so good at uncovering these type of things. Let me play this from the local news.
The girl went missing last Monday, and her body was found off Hickory Tree Road in Osceola County Friday afternoon. Sterns was arrested on sexual assault and child porn charges. Law enforcement says that, along with other reasons, makes him the prime suspect in Soto's death.
Our detectives have determined that Madeline was never dropped off on the morning of February 26th near her school. We have evidence that shows Stephan Sterns returning to the complex, and Madeline was visible in that vehicle. We believe she was already dead.
Awful story there. Right now, the case is being treated as a homicide case. As police investigate Madeline Soto's murder, we'll bring you updates as we get them right here on News 6 and our website, clickorlando.com.
So they believe the police believe that he killed her in the home. So it was the whole charade of driving her in the car and acting as if she was still alive. And according to the police chief Mena, they believe, again, we talk about video all over the place, cameras all over the place. You can't get away with things like this. And these guys, these criminals are stupid. They are not smart people. But again, investigative checklist. We have to check all the things. And we heard earlier also, he went on TV, crying on TV, as well as did the mother, Jennifer Soto. I'll play a little bit of her interview on television, and when you watch it now, it's a little bit tough to take. More than a little bit, I think, more than a little bit.
Tell us what's going on with Maddie.
Well, Monday morning, we took her to school. We dropped her off close to school, across the street from a church, which is it's right next to the school. She crossed the street and walked to school, what we thought walked to school. My boyfriend who drove her to school drove away at that point. It was seen on video footage that she hung out in the parking lot of the church for a few minutes and then got up and walked towards the school. But she never made it that walk and that was around 9 a.m. when she got up. She never made it to school after that. It's right next to the school. I don't know why she didn't make it. I don't know if something happened on her walk along the way or if she got taken, but she never made it.
And that was the last anyone's seen of her or heard from her?
Yes. I went to pick her up after school, and she wasn't there. So I started driving around, maybe thinking she took a walk. Maybe she decided to walk to my mom's office, which is pretty close to the school as well. Drove around and I didn't see anything. I drove back to the school. The school was closed. I emailed one of her teachers. They confirmed that she was absent all day. At that point is when I called 911 because I realized something was truly wrong.
Have you heard from any of her friends? Has she been active on any social media?
She hasn't been active on social media, none of her chats, none of her games. We did contact all her friends. None of them had seen her Monday or heard from her. Yeah, there's no update.
As possible to the case of missing juvenile Madeline Soto. So let me first start by saying, I know as a parent, this is every parent's worst nightmare. Many of our detectives and deputies who are working the case, they also have children, so they're working extra hard to find Madeline. We can't even imagine the pain and anguish that Madeline's family is going through. But I do want to assure the community that we have well over 100 deputies, detectives.
So guys, this was the beginning of the investigation. Now, when they brought in Stephan Sterns in, one of the first things they did, they asked permission. Could we see your phone? Could we take a look at your phone? And on his phone, they discovered some horrific images. And I'm not going to go into what they saw, but it gave them probable cause to arrest him. And the victim in these photos was Madeline Soto. And it doesn't spell that out in the search warrant because it's all redacted, it's all blacked out. So this poor little girl was living in a horror house, an absolute horror house. And so the police, again, they did an amazing job because they found video along the way of him dumping her backpack in a dumpster. And they found that. They found video of him driving her in the car, and they believe she was already dead. So could they have charged him had they not had these other charges? Potentially, but guess what? They have enough right now to hold him. So they can hold him until they build the strongest case possible. Because as I said, there's a good potentiality that she was murdered right inside her home. And when I tell you the horrific nature of the arrest warrant, I mean, you could pull it up online yourself. I won't say specifically what's in it because the YouTube people don't like that, but it's a horrific arrest warrant that spells out what this savage did. And so they can again arrest him for that, and then all they do is they wait till they get more physical evidence, more digital evidence. The phone again was almost like a smoking gun type piece of evidence, so powerful that the police are confident that they have the guy, they have the right guy. And I'm going to put this on from News Nation, and they'll give you a little bit more on this.
All along, Caitlin, an arrest made before the body was found. This seemed pretty unusual. Break it down.
It is, Hannah. The timeline here is a little bit weird. So she was reported missing on Monday. He was arrested on Wednesday, and her body was found on Friday. Now, he wasn't arrested for anything having to do with her disappearance or even her killing. He was arrested by police and taken into custody on charges of sexual battery and possession of child abuse material after they found disturbing images on his phone. Now, police did not go so far to say as to whether or not Madeline was the alleged victim of this abuse. However, they did say the abuse happened at home. And investigators said on Wednesday when they arrested him that they were confident at that point that Madeline was in fact dead. She was still missing at the time. So it seems like they had put together quite a bit of evidence at that point.
What do investigators think happened?
Well, they don't believe that Madeline made it to school that day and that Sterns was the last person to see her alive. The timeline here is very, very short. They believe she died quickly after leaving that morning. He was spotted allegedly coming home around 8:19 a.m. with Soto visible in the vehicle. And I do anticipate that we're going to get some more charges coming at us. What you're seeing here is the scene where her body was found. It was found in a wooded area a few days later. But I do anticipate quite a few more charges, including possibly homicide and even maybe tampering with evidence or destruction of evidence, because police also say that they have footage of him tossing items into a dumpster around 7-something in the morning that came back to be allegedly her backpack and belongings.
Oh, such a disturbing case. Thank you for that update, Caitlin.
So there you have it. I mean, they have enough probably now to charge him, but there's no rush. There's no rush. They're going to build the most solid case possible, and then they're going to charge him. But so they find horrific evidence. Now, as I said, they need to do a search warrant on the house. And, we can all talk about the mother. Is the mother involved? Or was the mother just tacitly complicit because she is not smart enough to realize something horrific was happening to her daughter right underneath her own roof? I don't get it. I totally don't get how this could be happening inside their house and them not understanding what was going on. Just unbelievable. So his car is also a search warrant location. We don't know what is in the car. What did they recover? They know in the dumpster they recovered her backpack. He's the last person to see her alive. These horrific images on his phone, that the crime that these images depicted took place inside Madeline's home. So I think the evidence is so strong, and they're going to pull the trigger on this, and he's going to be arrested. I mean, he's going to be charged with also the homicide. But for right now, they got enough to hold him. They got enough to hold him on these charges based on the phone. And when they interviewed him, one of the things we also found out was that he had did a factory reset on his phone on the 26th, was the day that she went missing. in order to delete all those images that he had on his phone. But guess what? It didn't work. And, you know, if Mike Geary was here, he would say his famous expression, consciousness of guilt, that he did that because he's guilty. He tried to delete these images because he's guilty. And he spoke with the police, and and they asked, can we look in your phone? And what did he say? He said, sure. And they find these images. And then, like smart detectives, smart cops, they just didn't jump to having him arrested for the homicide. They said, let's just put him on ice right now. Let's put him on ice because we have enough to arrest him for now and hold him. He's not going anywhere. And then once we have, you know, the old expression, our T's crossed and our I's dotted, we're going to slap the murder charge on him. But now we're holding him inside, and that's what they did.
Yeah, truly heartbreaking. We are learning that Madeline Soto's body was found right near where I am standing on Hickory Tree Road. And they found her body around 4:30 this afternoon, according to the sheriff's office, in a very wooded area. And a source tells Fox 35 that it takes a couple of miles to get to where her body was found by foot. I want to just show you what it looks like over here right now. You can see we're blocked off at this intersection. A sheriff's office deputy blocking off the area where they say that they found Madeline Soto's body. And now this is Sky Fox video of teams out here searching this area. And this, of course, comes after the Orange County Sheriff John Mina said that he was confident that Maddie was dead and that they were working to find her body. That was the latest we had heard from earlier this afternoon, and now we are getting this heartbreaking update that her body was found. I want to show you a picture of this car. This is Stephan Sterns' car, who was Maddie's mom's boyfriend. He was the suspect in her homicide case. He was last seen driving a silver Lincoln and in this area of Old Hickory Tree Road and Nolte Road. And now, of course, we are learning that her body was found in a wooded area. We are, of course, are going to try to find out any more information about this case, and we will bring it to you live. For now, reporting live, Stephanie Buffmont.
So, yeah, unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. And I think, and you guys in the chat, you're understanding what I'm talking about, is that this poor little girl was living a horror in her home without me spelling out what was going on, because I think we all know, and especially I would implore you to look at the arrest warrant. It sort of goes into detail, and it didacts, it blacks out the name of the victim, but it's in the victim's home. So who do you think the victim was? And this poor little girl, Serenity RPH since 2022. So she was 11 years old when this started. So this absolute savage, who you see up on the screen here, this absolute 100% savage was abusing this poor little girl for 2 years. And one of the things I want to ask you, all you guys in the chat, how did the mom not know? How did the mom not know this was going on? Is it believable that the mom didn't know what was going on? I don't know. I don't know. Do you think it was believable? I can't fathom how something this horrific could happen, and the mom didn't know. I just, how do you live in the same household with a monster like this? And I guess, and I know that people that abuse children like this are good at scaring the shit out of kids so that they don't tell on them, right? But this poor little girl must have had some behavioral changes, like her mom couldn't notice that she was acting in a strange way. I mean, Catherine McMartin from the chat, this happens all of the time. Usually the mom was abused as a child. That's how she wouldn't know. She blocked out her own trauma. Catherine McMartin, thank you. You know something. I worked when I was in Manhattan North Homicide Squad. In our building, 3280 Broadway, on the same floor was Manhattan Special Victims that does all crimes like this, child abuse and this type of thing. And I would supervise them once in a while when I had coverage. And I would go out with them on some of these cases. And some of these cases was so horrific. Baby Mine from the chat, she wasn't close to her daughter. I see mom with veneers and not the child looking drab. My daughter always looked better than me. Callie from the chat, mom lied many times during interview. I don't trust her at all. You know something, guys? I think that one of the things that can happen is that the person becomes almost like an enabler because they're afraid to like lose their boyfriend. So they enable their behavior and they're afraid they don't see what's obvious, probably would be obvious to everyone else. Steffi B, I don't think it's out of the question. I'm not confident enough to say one way or the other. You're talking about the complicity of the mother. Cynthia from the chat, impossible she didn't know. Both are monsters. Sydney Ward from the chat, mother's instinct. Yeah, that mothers should have instincts, right? I remember when I was a little boy, my mother would always know when I was upset about something. And my mother had 8 kids. She'd say, what's the matter? When she'd see me behaving differently. Sometimes there was nothing wrong. It was just a mother prying into my business. But many times there was something wrong, you know. And you guys that are mothers, you know this. You know this type of stuff. And just absolutely horrific, this case. So investigatively, they're doing everything correctly. Responding to the scene, interviewing the parents, the mom and the boyfriend. You know something? Sometimes they call things investigative tunnel vision. But going to this house, I would have immediately thought of the boyfriend as a suspect. Immediately. And people could say, oh, that's investigative tunnel vision. Well, I would get a real good feel, believe me, just being near that creep, you know? And that's what I think the good detectives on this, good detectives. And guess what the detectives did too? They got him to allow them to view his cell phone, and he gave them permission. So they didn't need a search warrant. They probably had him sign a, permission. I hereby give Detective so-and-so permission to look in that phone. And in that phone, they found what they needed to arrest him for other charges that we know in the arrest warrant that are horrific, that uncovered, that gave them enough probable cause to arrest him. And now, you know, when I use the term canvas, what does that mean? Well, canvas, they want to canvas the whole route to that school, the whole area, video. They caught this creep on video dumping her stuff in the dumpster. They caught him driving into the complex with her dead body in the car. So excellent police work. I know we all take it for granted. There's that little dirtbag right here on the screen, right? And his name is Stephan Sterns. Let's put his name out there, and luckily guys like this, when they go to prison, don't have an easy time of it, and but just this is the second really horrific missing persons case that we've covered in the last couple of weeks. The other one, of course, was Audrey Cunningham, that was 11 years old, that was killed by someone living on her grandparents' property, a friend of her father. At the very least, I would say to you guys, and I'm not going to preach, but be careful of who you allow around your kids, because you never know. And this, I would like to know what Stephan Sterns' criminal history is. Is he a first timer? I doubt it. So I would love to know. I'd love to see his rap sheet. I would love to see his career, his criminal career, because usually, and not all the time, but usually there are indications of this type of behavior. And as I said, I'd be surprised if he didn't show any indications of this type of behavior.
TV. I can't tell you, in looking through it, one of the things that stood out, investigators say the mom's boyfriend, Stephan Sterns, told investigators that he did a factory reset on his phone the same day Maddie was reported missing.
Maddie, if you see this, please come home.
A mother begs for answers to Fox 35 in the search for her missing daughter, 13-year-old Maddie Soto.
I'm trying to hope for the best, but I'm scared for her. I want her to be okay.
Days later, Orange County Sheriff's Office names the man in the back of our interview as their prime suspect in the case, Stephan Sterns, Maddie's mom's boyfriend. Sterns is the last known person to have seen Maddie. He is not charged in the teen's disappearance, but was arrested last night and charged with sexual battery and possession of child sexual abuse material. Kissimmee police are assisting with the case. They say investigators uncovered the images on Sterns' phone, and the alleged acts happened inside the family's home in Kissimmee. In the arrest affidavit, it notes Sterns, quote, provided consent to search his phone. However, he stated he accidentally performed a factory reset on his phone on February 26, 2024. The same day.
Can anyone perform an accidental factory reset on their cell phone? I don't know if that's possible. I'm certainly no digital expert, but I don't think it's really possible to accidentally do a factory research on your phone.
Maddie was reported missing. Sterns was expected in court today in connection to these new charges. But
based upon his refusal to come to court, he's got an out-of-county warrant out of Osceola County. His bonds will remain at none.
Meanwhile, still no Maddie.
Whenever you have a person go missing, especially a child, timing is critical.
Matt Aubin isn't connected to the search, but has helped law enforcement agencies in Florida and across the country with missing person cases. He says investigators are not only looking into the area where Maddie went missing, but also who she may have come in contact with and what happened leading up to her disappearance.
When investigating something, one, old is gold. We have to go far back into their history as far as we have to in order to truly map out.
You know, Crifty Crass in the chat, I think that's, that was, let me see if I can pull what she just said. Bill, I don't think he had a rap sheet, but a friend called him to another show and his mom sounds like Roberta Laundrie. She paid off another friend to not go to the police for files he found. Horrific, right? That anyone would protect a savage like this.
Everyone and everything that's linked to that person.
Now, again, Sterns is being held in jail with no bond tonight. Reporting live in Kissimmee, Randy Hildreth, Fox 35 News.
Thanks, Randy. Meanwhile, the search for Maddie continues. Deputies are not doing an organized search today, but they are still.
They found her, and one of the ways they did find her was video canvassing the area that came up with video of him pulling into the complex with her body in the car. That was caught on video. All right. Also, video of him throwing her backpack in a dumpster. And then, of course, we have the digital images all over his phone, which was, to me, as an investigator, I would just be like, he did it. He's the guy. Now let's build the case. You know. He committed this horrific crime. Now let's just find the evidence because we know he's our suspect. Now let's find the evidence and put this savage away.
On Tuesday, Sterns was in the back of that interview and he made his presence known. He grabbed a chair and loudly set it down behind Maddie's mom and stayed there throughout most of our conversation. He was also cracking his knuckles and fidgeting with his hands. After watching his mannerisms, we actually reached out to Susan Constantine. She's a human behavior investigator to get her professional opinion.
In my personal opinion, I would have said, Sheriff's Office, you need to take a really good look at this guy. He is presenting to me suspect behavior. A lot of times people, when they're trying to hide something, their body becomes...
You know, I don't think the Sheriff's Office needed a body expert. They're good at their job. They knew he was the suspect. They don't need a body language expert to tell them. They did a fantastic job, but thank you for suggesting this.
He was very rigid and very hyper-focused. We see that a lot. You also see him at one, he's cracking his knuckles. You'll see that later on. Okay, that's a way to release tension. The point is, tension is actually one of the 27 what we call points of interest that can lead to possible deception or suspect behavior.
Constantine has aided law enforcement in numerous high-profile investigations across the country. And something else she told us during that interview, it's no matter what a person is saying, oftentimes their body language will betray them by sending those all-important non-verbal cues. Now, where we're standing right now is believed to be one of the last places Maddie Soto was seen. This is allegedly where Sterns dropped her off on Monday morning. As you can see behind me, there are flyers posted here in the area. And as we arrived, some kiddos were actually getting out of school, which is where Maddie attends school. It's just not far, just down the sidewalk here. And they were actually holding a prayer circle for Maddie's safe return. If you at home know anything.
So this obviously was before that they charged. Well, he hasn't been charged with the murder yet, before he was taken in as finding those horrific images on his phone. So what you may ask now, so what are the police doing now? What is the big job they need to do now? Well, so much of the evidence in the true crime community, in the police investigative community, is video and digital, and that's no it's not unusual. In this case, it's the same thing. The probable cause information they got to arrest him for what he's being held for now was found inside his phone. Video was found of him with Madeline inside his car, but the police believe at that point she was dead. The sheriff believed she was killed in the house, and it was all a show of him bringing her back. So that's part of the investigative steps. The other really huge thing, I'm going to talk about that after I go to a quick little promotion for Police Off the Cuff, is the body itself. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories, true crime. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, hit the like button, share us with your family, with your friends. Guys, I'm proud to say 76% of my audience are females. It's amazing. And I won't give the demographic age-wise, but it's most of them are between, well, they're not all my age, some younger, some a little older, but I'm so excited to have that audience, because that is the true crime audience. And I really love having you guys, and I love having you guys being fans of Police Off the Cuff, subscribers, friends. All of that's really important to me. Also, if you want to support this show financially, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels. And you can support this channel by either joining our Patreon or joining our YouTube. So I mentioned before I went into this little commercial about a huge piece of the evidence. And probably one of the reasons they haven't arrested him for the murder yet is a crime scene in itself is the body, all right? And the forensic evidence that is on that body. And I don't have to spell it out, but she could have also fought for her life. She could have the DNA of this Stephan Sterns underneath her fingernail, as well as other biological fluids that they can recover during the autopsy, could discover how she was killed, how long she was dead, all of those things that are just so horrific. And then I won't spell it out, but the arrest warrant, the pictures of the horrific pictures that were shown that they discovered on his phone, and the things they name in the arrest warrant. I just feel so sorry for this little girl that she had to go through this horrible things that were done to her by this guy, and it's it's too hard to understand how it could happen, how this really could happen. It's just I don't know. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. And you see a picture of him, and the only solace we can all have is that he's going to prison one day for the rest of his life. And I always want to mention how great a job the police do in cases like this. And to me, even though I was a cop myself for 27 years, I think they're real heroes in this world, and cops are real heroes. I really do. Dawn Klaterman, you can't do it accidentally. I think you're talking about a factory reset of his phone. It takes multiple steps and asks many times, "Are you sure?" Also, according to a former friend, he was a computer whiz. Ha ha. So you're talking about the reset, the factory reset of Stephan Sterns' phone, which he did to try to cover up the incriminating photos that were on his phone that led the police to lock him up. It's Prince Charming's mom, 2930. Dawn, I'm late. Congratulations on your son's wedding. 3 extremely handsome men. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I told it earlier on. Joanne W. No, on iPhone anyway, I've had to reset, and it's not easy. I didn't think it was easy. Everything on a phone, everything on a computer, nothing's easy. And they have to sometimes make it idiot-proof too, right? So that you can't do it accidentally, right? That's why everything has 3 and 4 steps. Sidney Ward from the chat. First time he was caught, but I'm sure he has a history of this. Sidney, I'm inclined to think that too, that he does have a history of this. I can't say because I don't have access to his rap sheet. Zutzin Butzi on Android. It takes multiple commands, and the phone will double check the status options. It's not accidentally possible for a reason. Software developers know this. Zutzin Butzi. That's a tongue twister. Thank you. You're 100% right. And sometimes when they make it idiot proof, they have me in mind, because I'm certainly, if I didn't have sons, I'd be lost. And then other ways to. Crafty Crafts from the chat. He was described as a techie gamer who wouldn't have mistakenly done a factory reset. No, we know that. And as I said, Professor Mike Geary, who's a frequent baby mine, wasn't in his flat tire area. Yeah, that too. Someone called. That's where they discovered the body by. Someone called and reported that someone had, or he had, because they had put out information. They wanted tips that he had a flat tire in that vicinity. PK, according to Florida Statute 794.11 of capital sexual battery in the state of Florida, the sentence ranges from life in prison without parole to death by electrocution or lethal injection. Well, we're way too soon. It's way too soon to discuss that. Viviana Pacheco from the chat. I will find you the podcast. He has probably done essay on a child before, but he has just never been caught. You need to interview the childhood friend. Viviana Pacheco, no doubt. I don't think, if he never got caught, I still think he probably has hundreds of victims, Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore. Maddie's mom knows more than she's saying. She told police, don't look in the woods by the church. Let's hope that she's not involved, but is there potential that she is involved? I want to play a little bit of the sheriff talking about the timeline earlier on in this case. And we all know now that they found the body on Friday night. So let me play a little bit of the sheriff here.
Intelligence analysts and specialized personnel who are investigating this case and searching for Madeline right now. And we will not stop until we find her. So Madeline is 13 years old. She has been missing since 8:30 on Monday morning, when mom's boyfriend dropped her off near Hunters Creek Middle School. He dropped her off actually near the Peace United Methodist Church on Town Boulevard. So I'll kind of go through like a timeline of events as we know it. Like I said, mom's boyfriend dropped Madeline off at about 8:30 a.m. on Monday morning, a few blocks away from the school. At approximately 4:30 on Monday afternoon, Madeline's mom went to the school to pick her up and found out that Madeline was not there and had never reported to school. So she never actually entered the school. And so we also learned that Madeline left her phone at home that day. So we were called.
That really sounds suspicious to me, that that Madeline left her phone at home, and then the mother said she has ADD and she does that all the time. But kids are so connected to their phone, and I think not just kids, adults too. I mean, if I don't have my phone with me, I'm like, oh my God, where's my phone? And so I would think that kids, a 13-year-old girl, would be at least that nervous about not having a phone with her. So is that the convenience of this was the day that she was murdered, that her phone was left so that they couldn't track the phone? And I think that's more likely as to what occurred than that she just left the phone at home.
On Monday evening at approximately 8 p.m., our patrol deputies went out there, met with Madeline's mom at the school near Hunters Creek to take a report on her missing daughter. So we started the investigation that night, started canvassing the area, looking for any witnesses or surveillance video. So later that evening, while we were doing investigation, we did obtain an article of Madeline from the house. We called our bloodhound. The bloodhound did an extensive search, which unfortunately did not provide any results about her whereabouts. So our missing persons detectives responded to take over the investigation. So they did interviews with mom's boyfriend, Madeline's friends from school. We were able to access Madeline's phone, and there is information on the phone that indicated that she told people when she turned 13, which was on February 22nd, she actually wanted to go live in the woods.
Something that is indicative of a child being abused. Can you imagine a 13-year-old child that wants to live in the woods? Well, why does she want to live in the woods? Because she's being abused. And that is something that I would also think that inside Madeline's phone, there is going to be a lot of information about what was occurring to her inside her home. And it's going to point right to Stephan Sterns. And it's going to also be very powerful evidence against him. I mean, all of this stuff is just so horrific. Kami, thank you so much for the $1 super sticker. I saw some other folks had given earlier on. I didn't call it out. I'm trying to look back a little bit, but Carlos Martinez from the chat, thank you for the $5 super sticker. Check out the ex-friend of Sterns that called into Gray Hughes Investigates. He is a creepy SOB. Also, definitely think mom knew. Fake as interview. Carlos, it's a possibility, but you know something? The police will look into that. They will definitely, they'll definitely interview the mother up and down. And remember, I told everyone here, they're going to do a search warrant of that home. They may find things in the home that implicates the mother. The first step, well, not the first step, but one of the steps in a missing person case is to search the home and absolutely the room. Could Madeline also have been keeping a diary of the things that were happening to her? But the home could have forensic evidence. The home needed to be locked down once they discovered this body. Once they discovered the evidence against the boyfriend, I think that was on the Wednesday, inside his phone, I think the home should have been locked down and a search warrant should have been sought, and they should have executed that search warrant. And we spoke about the recovery of Madeline's body. And that in itself, as I said before, is a crime scene, right? First of all, and I don't want to get into the SA part of this, but a physical examination of a 13-year-old girl is going to uncover some SA activity and that occurred to from a physical nature. A doctor can examine the little girl, and I call her a little girl because that's what she is, and that will also implicate, sometimes you maybe use the word savage, but it really fits in this case, right? Stephan Sterns, the savage that he is, right? And the photos, the evidence in his phone is what's going to nail this guy. And the police, the detectives, the search, the recovery of the body, the autopsy, the forensic recovery of evidence from that body is going to nail this guy. It's going to nail this guy. These cases, they're so hard to cover because they're so disheartening, right? For everyone, all of us out here are parents. We all love kids, right? When something like this happens to a 13-year-old girl, we feel it, don't we? I do, and I've seen things, and Lieutenant Pete Pranzo in the chat, I've seen things that no human being should have to see. Horrific things that sometimes wake me up in the middle of the night, sometimes just come back into my consciousness, appear in my brain like a movie almost, an unfinished movie that you're watching, images that are burnt into my brain. And when you hear things like this, it reminds you of some of those things, and that's, that's police work, and that's a lot of professions, Dollar Sterling from the chat. It's sickening to know sex battery. Just blows my mind. How was the atmosphere in that home? Obviously, Dollar Sterling, it was horrible. It was horrible. And it was, this little girl was keeping it quiet. We think at this point she was keeping it from her mother. If she wasn't and her mother knew about it, then her mother should be charged with the same charge that Stearns is being charged with, Helen, this case looks just like the case in Texas. I think he saw that and thought, I can do the same, but do it better. It's horrible. It's horrible. Let me go back to the sheriff. We'll play a little more of the sheriff.
So that was in her phone. And so during the course of the day on Tuesday, detectives and deputies conducted extensive interviews, an extensive canvass. We collected video from the area and again, conducted interviews with family members. So on yesterday, we distributed flyers in the area near the school. As a matter of fact, Madeline's family had their own flyers. We're also distributing flyers to family and friends and students at the school at the same time. So the house is in Kissimmee, where the family lives, is being held overnight by the Orange County Sheriff's Office and the Kissimmee Police so that we could secure search warrants.
So they did get a
This
search
is
warrant for
common
the house.
practice in cases like this, and those search warrants should be executed today. On Wednesday this morning, more than 50 members of our emergency response team responded out there to the area near the school and conducted an area search for Madeline.
So, folks, this was before they found the body on Friday, but he's enumerating the investigative steps, and again, the search warrant on the home. I guaranteed they recovered a great deal of evidence from that home, which are indicative of connecting the dots, as we say, the pictures on his phone, the images on his phone, what she was possibly wearing in some of those images. They recovered the clothing. That connects the dots to him. Just again, absolutely horrific. Zekia's mama from the chat. My opinion is what hung the mother's expressions of body language, and having studied psychology, I believe she knew something. She may not be so-called involved with murder, but she knows something. Well, if she did and she didn't do anything, this is It's a mother's job to do that, not to ignore things, right? Lieutenant Peter Pranzo, Harlem Raiders agree Bill, America's finest, are stepping up under trying circumstances. Lieutenant Pete, you were one of the best, and I take that as gospel from someone like Lieutenant Peter Pranzo. Harlem Raiders, you know, I worked with Lieutenant Pete in street crime. I don't want to say what year, but everyone knows we're not young, so I'll say the year, 1988. Lieutenant Pete was a lieutenant in street crime. I was a cop, and he had these big mutton chop sideburns, and I always remembered that. And he was always a nice, calm guy, even like he is right now, even when he was in street crime. Viviana Pacheco, Dawn, his roommate, was the whiz. That's who found the weird stuff Stern was looking at. I think the way his friend said it was hard to decipher. He said Sterns was dumb, but liked gaming. Oh, God. Carlos Martinez, I live in Kissimmee, also helped look for her in the beginning. So sad. I'm a retired first responder, moved to Florida 2 years ago. God bless you, Carlos, and bless your service. Lizzie Herzberger, Bill, I don't know all the details on the mom's health, home life, and her mental state, but me as a mother, you didn't finish, Lizzie, and I know that you would know about it. Lizzie Herzberger, author of the book on Amish Behind the Blue Curtain, which details things like we're talking about right now. Let me go back to the sheriff for a little bit. And he was talking about it wasn't timely because this was before they found her, but it's important to hear the investigative steps they did.
And so we have a command post set up out there at that area. We also have a command post set up here at the sheriff's office for the investigative side of it. So, our detectives are continuing to do interviews and follow up on all possible leads. One thing we do in all missing person cases, especially missing juveniles, our sex offender surveillance squad goes out and makes contact with every single sex offender in the area of Madeline's last location. And so, I wish I had some more definitive answers. We just want to keep getting Madeline's picture out there. We want people.
Outstanding idea for them in missing person cases to round up all the sex offenders and interview them. Great. I think it's a great idea. One of the investigative steps that maybe every police department should do.
Who may know something about her disappearance to call us. They can call us anonymously at 1-800-423-TIPS. They can also call 911 if they think they know what happened to Madeline. And again, it's every parent's worst nightmare, but rest assured that, we are doing everything possible. We have an extensive section dedicated to working solely on finding out where Madeline is. And I'll take some questions, but again.
So we know what happened, guys. We know what occurred. And this was earlier on in the investigation. I just think it's good to hear from the chief as to what they were doing and how they connected this. Lizzie Herzberger. Lizzie, thank you so much for the $9.99 super sticker. That's Lizzie Herzberger from Behind the Blue Curtain fame. If you haven't read her book, you can get it on Amazon, Behind the Blue Curtain. And she talks about SA within the Amish community. And it's a brilliant book. And Lizzie is a survivor herself and a brilliant woman. And again, Behind the Blue Curtain. If you haven't read it or bought it, it's a great book. I read it, and Lizzie's been on my show a couple of times. So, again, I think that they're going to have a super, super strong case against this guy. This was earlier on. You see a little 13-year-old girl that's supposed to be doing things that 13-year-old girls do, going out with their friends and, talking on the phone. Now everyone's got a cell phone, right? There's his car right there. And when we talk about a lot of digital evidence and GPS evidence, a car is a great way to track. There's a computer in the car. They can see where that car went, and along with the car's computer, his cell phone, all of those things. It's important that they check all of those things, and they do. And that's when we talk, I want to play a little bit of him so everyone could see the creep that this guy is. And let me get this off the screen. I'm going to play a little bit. It's amazing that these guys, they think they can fool everybody. And he goes, he's got crocodile tears, as they say, right? Let's put him up on the screen. There he is, the savage.
All right. The first question is if I can get your first and last name and spell them both out for me.
Stephan Sterns, Stephan Sterns.
All right, so Stephan,
Sterns speaking.
You seem very emotional right now. Explain to us.
I dropped her off. Everything looked fine when I drove away. It's the last time we saw her.
What were the conversations that y'all had in the car when you dropped her off?
Not much. She was asleep for most of the way. Told her have a good day at school when she got out, and I love her. She said thanks, love you too. That was it.
And so where do you think she could possibly be? I mean, this isn't, as I was told, this isn't normal behavior.
This is not normal behavior. She's not the type that would just run off. We don't know where she can be. And we're scared. We just want her home.
Are you, in a sense, blaming yourself?
It's hard not to.
Why?
He is one of the worst actors I've ever seen in my life. It's not even believable. Even if I had watched this before we knew what happened, the guy's bad news.
I dropped her off early. I could have waited longer. She looked okay. She was walking towards the school when I saw her. It was like any other day, so I went on with my day. It's hard not to blame myself.
What has the conversation been with Jen since?
She's been a lot stronger than me. She's been holding it together really well. And but it just keeps coming in waves. Just the reality keeps hitting. We don't know where she is. We don't know if she's safe. We're just scared. We just want her home.
Have you, literally put boots on the ground, went out?
Yeah, I even went out with the cops where I had dropped her off. And we looked all up and down the road, all along communities, and there was nothing helpful. None of the cameras were pointing the street. Nothing, which in 2024 was surprising. The church across the street had some cameras, and they mentioned seeing her waiting around in the parking lot for a while before moving on, and that was it. But it was grainy. It was grainy footage, and not much else.
Does it seem like she walked west, east?
They said in the direction of the school. I'm not sure what that is.
This is suspect Stephan Sterns being interviewed before they found the body, obviously. And I'm not a body language expert, but I can read that I don't believe what he's saying. It's just he seems like a bad actor here.
What was the language, not language verbally, body language, when you dropped her off? Did she seem happy? Was she like, I'm going to meet my friends?
Happy. She got a happy weekend. She just turned 13. She had a 13th birthday party. She was happy that we were all together here, and she's just very happy. She was a happy kid. She's very sweet. She's a very sweet girl. She brings a lot of joy to us, and we just not knowing.
So the unknown is killing you.
Yeah, it's like our whole world is upside down. Not feeling her presence here is. Sorry. It's hard.
I know you're fine. Don't need to apologize. What do you want our viewers to know when they see this?
She's a sweetheart. She's a very sweet, kind girl. Just please be nice to her. Bring her home if you find her. Tell her that we love her. Wherever she is, I hope she's okay.
I mean, if someone were to come in contact with her and you gave me her diagnoses, would it be easy to approach her without any like agitation or anything?
Yeah, yeah. She's a good kid. She's a good kid.
If you can sum up in one complete sentence, waking up, getting ready to drop her off at school, dropping her off at school, to now speaking to me after talking to the police about her being missing for over 24 hours right now. In one complete sentence, what would that be?
A living nightmare. It's a living nightmare. Day started off like any other. And I just want to wake up and just get hit with waves of the reality just it's setting in. As soon as it got dark last night, we started falling apart because we knew it wasn't going to come to an end.
So Stephan Sterns is giving that performance, knowing full well where she is, knowing full well what he did, right? And one of the most important things that detectives do is something called interview and interrogation. And I've seen some of the best in the world at it. You know, I was the boss of 6 detectives in my team in Manhattan North Homicide Squad. Some of the best detectives in New York City in the homicide squad. And they knew how to get the truth out of people, and no one threatened or yelled or anything like that. They would just speak to people, and they would point inconsistencies at them. Like this guy, you go in a room with him and you start knowing things that he doesn't know you know. And that's how you challenge him. And that's how that's how you get the truth out of a guy like this, because again, he's not a rocket scientist, right? And I don't think many people can match wits with a detective. It's just like playing against someone on their home court. You know, this is what they do every single day. This is what they do for a living. So it's very difficult for anyone, like, as I said, to match wits with a detective and think they're gonna be able to bullshit a detective and get the and get the detective to accept their story and think that, oh wow, he's telling the truth. Because when you challenge people with things that are true and they're lying to you, but they don't know that you know that they're lying, it's very powerful. And then when you come in on them and you tell them, look, what you just told me was all bullshit. And then they start getting a little nervous and they start trying to change their story. And once they start changing their story, we call that the tap dance. You know, they start doing a tap dance around it. And that's when a detective really bears down, especially on a savage like this, you know, starts bearing down and goes, wait a minute, you just told me this 2 minutes ago. Is it that or is it this? All right, let's get this straight. Oh, so where were you then? And where was she? And you start going at them with these inconsistencies. And then this guy, believe it, will fall apart. Will just fall apart, and he won't be able to keep up his lies.
Hours after Madeline Soto was found dead in rural Osceola County, her mother's boyfriend and the main suspect in her death was in court. Stephan Sterns faces charges of sexual battery and possession of child sexual abuse material. West 2's Haley Crumblehome is live tonight at the Osceola County Jail, where Sterns is now being held. And Haley, you did get the chance to speak with Kissimmee Police about what comes next.
So they tell me that more charges could be coming, but right now they're focusing on the case at hand and working on investigating all possible angles.
Stephan Sterns or
Stephan Sterns had his initial appearance in court Saturday. He never spoke, but his attorney did.
Your Honor, at this time, I am going to waive Mr. Sterns' appearance. I'm also going to waive the reading of these charges. Mr. Sterns is aware of what he's been arrested for.
Though Sterns is a prime suspect in Madeline Soto's death, the charges he faced Saturday came after deputies found what they called disturbing images on Sterns' phone. The charges include sexual battery and possession of child sexual abuse material.
Sir, you got 0 bond.
The Kissimmee Police Department is now leading the investigation into what happened to Madeline. They said Saturday the department is conducting follow-ups and collecting evidence and working to prepare a solid case. They said Sterns could be facing additional charges in the future, but only after a thorough investigation.
It's still denial. It's absolute denial. You don't want to believe this happened to a little kid.
That's how those gathered to remember Madeline felt Friday night, standing outside of the school she never made it to Monday, just hours after her body had been found.
Disbelief and definitely overwhelming. I think that's pretty much what we've all gone through. I can only imagine what her immediate family has gone through.
For other students at Hunters Creek Middle, it's a mess of emotions.
Confused, sad, angry at the person who did that.
Still trying to work through a situation no one could understand.
I don't know how to explain it. I just feel horrible. It's horrible. Like, who in their right mind would do that to a little girl?
Now, though Madeline has been found, the Kissimmee Police Department is asking anyone with information that could assist them as they're investigating this case to come forward. Live in Osceola County, Haley Crumblehome, WESH 2 News.
Haley, thank you. And here's a timeline of Maddie Soto's death investigation. On Monday at 8:19 in the morning, investigators say video shows Sterns returning to the family's Kissimmee apartment complex with Madeline visible inside the car. Investigators do believe that she was already dead at that time. Now, they arrested Sterns for sexual battery on Wednesday, and then on Thursday, the Orange County deputies said that they believe Sterns had information regarding the disappearance of Soto. However, he refused to answer any questions and requested an attorney. Sterns was transferred from the Orange County Jail to the Osceola County Jail on Friday morning.
So, very interesting. And guys, that's also where the science of investigation comes in. When he drove back, with her body in the car, and they could see it from the video. And then when they found the body on the Friday, right, science will tell us approximately how long she had been dead. All right. And the science is not exact, but things like rigor mortis, alga mortis, putrefaction, decomposition, if her body was left outside for all that time, temperature would not be a huge factor, because that is a factor in predicting time of death. But mostly, again, it's timestamps. Peter Prenzo, Life Out Loud, Bill, thanks. And you were a very young, aggressive, undercover plainclothes cop. Don't tell everyone that, Lieutenant Pete. Well, I was. I loved anti-crime, which is the work we did. Plainclothes, citywide anti-crime was the best. And I was aggressive, and I loved, I came on the police department to fight crime. I didn't want to be a community policing officer or a politician. I came to go after criminals, and that's what I wanted to do. And there was no better place to do it than the street crime unit, and guys like Lieutenant Pete, he was the best. He was one of the best bosses there, and it's an amazing thing. We're talking, God, how long ago was it? How long ago was 1988? God, long time, right? A long time ago. And Lieutenant Pete was the best. Folks, if you're looking for a great attorney in the New York metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe's a retired NYPD police officer and a fantastic defense attorney. You can reach Joe on his cell phone at 718-514-3855. Email him at joe@jmurray-law.com or go on his website, jmurray-law.com. Not only is Joe a fantastic defense attorney, but he's a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff podcast, and we really appreciate everything he does. In fact, there's a picture of Joe right there saying, "What do you want from me?" All right, but that's who he is. So, folks, obviously this case is nowhere near completion. There's so many questions that we have, right? is the mother involved? Is she involved where she actually contributed to this? And contributed to what? Well, was she an enabler? Did she know something bad was happening right under her own rooftop to her daughter? And did she do nothing about it? You can be guilty in that way. You don't have to take part in the crime, you know? Lizzie Herzberger, Bill, the mom had to have known something. Lizzie, I agree with you, Lizzie. And if she didn't, then she didn't really have good motherly instincts, you know? Not at all. And I know you guys. Linda Hackett makes me sick to look at him. Yeah, it is sickening. Roseanne from the chat, I may not have been able to look if it were my child because I'd be paralyzed with grief and hysteria. Yeah, this is one of the worst, absolutely worst things that could happen to you. But you know something? I give crime prevention tips sometimes too. And one of the things I could say is that sometimes bad things are brought right into your home by a family member, someone dating someone or going out with someone that's bad news, or a friend that's bad news that they bring into your home. And I always preach that to my kids. Be careful who you hang out with. And don't bring everyone that you hang out with into our home, because I don't trust everyone, all right? And I think that's important as a parent to recognize that, and to recognize that not everyone in this world has your best interest in mind, you know? And I think you guys know this, I'm not, but I just want to mention that some of the worst things you can bring things right into your own home. That's bad news. Becky B, you're probably responding to him talking about what he was saying on screen. Sometimes I don't get your comments in the chat exactly at the time you're saying them, so they don't. Maui Swift, he can't look at the reporter in the face. Yeah, he is a savage, that's for sure. Tracy, Elizabeth K, you're right. I heard that. I don't think she meant it as she knew, though, only that she knew her daughter wouldn't be there for known reasons, not because she was deceased. Holly, are interrogators trained in body language? 100% they are. Yes, they are. And actually, a lot of it, Holly, is that a good detective with the NYPD does actually hundreds and thousands of interviews. So even doing that, you get on-the-job training and experience of reading body language, you know, and all of us, no matter what field you're in, can read body language. Some are better at it than others. Some people can use it to their advantage when questioning someone, but we all do. We all read it. We all have a certain level of talent. And they say it sometimes 75 to 85% of a message is conveyed by a body language, not by the language, just by a body language. So very, very important. Kirsten Froscheiser. In the 90s, I had a perfectly not abusive boyfriend who did help me with my daughter, but didn't live with me. Sometimes he did take her to school and they knew him. We were good friends. Kirsten, I'm not saying like you got to be that everyone is a monster like this guy. I'm just saying you got to be careful of who you bring and who you allow your kids around. You know, when my kids grew up, we had au pairs because my wife and I both worked. So we would have young girls come in from different countries and they would live with us for like a year. And I would have a talk with all of them. And I said, number one, you want to have a boyfriend? Fine. Do not bring him into my house. That was my rule. You can have as many boyfriends as you want, but they don't come into my house. Because I always felt that was bringing trouble into my house. I don't know your boyfriend. I don't wish to know him. You want to have a boyfriend? Good. Go see him outside my house. Do not bring him in my house. And they respected that and they didn't do it. You know, they didn't. And don't bring my kids around your boyfriend either, for that matter. You know, Chloe's mom from the chat had the police put out a description of his car and a plea for help on that timeline earlier. Maddie would have been found sooner. They didn't even say what kind of car until Friday. Well, Chloe, that could have been overlooked. However, Stephan Sterns, I don't know at what point they totally considered him a suspect. And as I said, early on, I would have looked at that dude and I would have said, I don't like this guy. You know, there's something about him that I think he potentially could be involved in this. So I don't know at what point, and I am not these cops did a great job. These detectives did a fantastic job. Their job is not over. They have a lot more work to do, but they've done a fantastic job, and I can give them nothing but praise. Dawn Marie, so good to see you. So sad for little Madeline. 100% Dawn Marie. It absolutely is so sad for her. Kirsten Froschheiser, I don't like this concept of single moms not being allowed to have relationships. There's a lot of that going on. Even if we look into them, they could be bad dudes. I married one, almost killed me. Kirsten, I'm not saying a single mom can't have a relationship. I've known a lot of single moms when I was teaching. A lot of my teachers were, and they told me the same thing. They had one of them had a young son. She said, I'm very reluctant to bring guys around my son because I don't know if I can trust him. I said, well, that's the way you should feel. Your son is your biggest asset of your life. And unless you're 100% sure that this person is cool, I would not bring him around your son. And so I understand what you're talking about. And look, it's, you got to read body language too. You guys, you single moms, and you have to read body language. You have to do a background check on a boyfriend, right? Do all of those things. You can do that. Spend a few dollars if you're going to see someone and take someone into your home. So guys, I want to thank everyone for listening tonight. I came off the wedding of my son, Jake, and I hate to segue from the saddest story to a happy story, but I want to thank everyone because I told everyone I wasn't going to be on the air for a few days, and you guys were so supportive. Here's a quick picture of myself and my two sons. The one in the middle is Jake. He got married, and we're so super happy for Jake and his wife, Allie. And it was a very wonderful experience, an emotional one. And all you parents know that when your sons or daughters get married, it's an experience. You know, it's a really emotional experience, and you love your kids. And so I just want to thank all you guys for supporting me and supporting this show and welcoming me back to the airways again. And for that, I thank all you guys. It's unbelievable. So guys, I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll cover this story again, as I'm pretty sure there's going to be a murder arrest coming very, very soon. And I'll be covering that when it happens. Have a great night, everyone, and I'll see you soon.
One episode, just ain't enough.